The rain hammered the dorm window like it was trying to break in, mirroring the storm raging inside me. I stared at the crumpled rejection letter from my advisor. Another F. Another door slammed in my face, and whispered to the empty room, "What's the point anymore?" That's when my phone buzzed, Victor's name lighting up the screen like a lifeline I didn't deserve. "Get your ass to the quad. Now, we need to talk." I almost didn't go. The semester had chewed me up and spit me out. Endless all-nighters cramming for exams I bombed anyway. The weight of hiding who I was from my conservative folks back in Ohio pressing down like a lead blanket. But Victor? He was the one constant, the guy who'd crashed into my life freshman year with that cocky grin and a backpack full of dog-eared philosophy books. We'd bonded over late-night diner runs in this godforsaken upstate New York college town, trading stories about dreams we were too scared to chase. He knew my secrets, or at least the ones I let slip after one too many cheap beers. So I yanked on my hoodie, splashed through the puddles to the quad, and there he was, leaning against the old oak tree, steam rising from his coffee cup like he owned the night. "Theo," he said, his voice cutting through the downpour without a hint of pity, "you're not quitting, not on my watch." He thrust the coffee at me, hot and black, just how I liked it, and pulled me under the tree's meager shelter. Water dripped from his blonde curls, plastering his shirt to his chest, but he didn't flinch. "That's Victor for you, unbreakable," or so I thought. He launched into this rant about how failure wasn't the end, how every great American underdog story started with a gut punch. "Remember Langston Hughes? Life for me ain't been no crystal stair. You're climbing that shit, Theo, even if you gotta do it on your hands and knees." I wanted to argue, to tell him he didn't get it. The isolation of being the only out gay kid in my engineering program, the whispers in the halls, the way my heart raced every time I scrolled through Grindr just to feel less alone. But his eyes, those piercing blue ones that crinkled at the corners when he laughed, held me captive. By the time the rain slowed to a drizzle, he'd convinced me to sign up for tutoring, to talk to a counselor, to believe in some bullshit notion of resilience. We walked back to the dorms side by side, our shoulders brushing in that electric way that made my pulse stutter. "Thanks, man," I muttered, bumping his arm. He just smirked. "Anytime. That's what brothers are for." Brothers. The word stung, but I swallowed it down. The next few weeks blurred into a grind of redemption. Victor became my shadow, quiz prep sessions in the library where he'd quiz me on circuits while doodling absurd cartoons of our professors, coffee-fueled walks along the frozen Hudson where he'd spin tales of his own fuck-ups, like the time he flunked out of his first college in California because he was too busy chasing waves and heartbreak. He never talked much about the heartbreak part, but I caught glimpses. The way his jaw tightened when a guy's name came up in conversation, the faded tattoo on his forearm, a compass rose with wanderlust scripted below, that he traced absent-mindedly when he thought I wasn't looking. One night, after I'd aced my makeup midterm, we celebrated at O'Malley's, the dive bar off campus where the jukebox always played Springsteen. The place reeked of stale peanuts and spilled IPA, but it felt like home with Victor across from me, clinking bottles and toasting to second chances. The beer loosened my tongue, and before I knew it, I was spilling everything. The fear of going home for break, the dreams of transferring to a city school where I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. He listened, really listened, his hand finding mine under the table for a split second that stretched into eternity. "You're braver than you know, Theo," he said softly, his thumb brushing my knuckles. "And for what it's worth, you're not alone in this." That touch ignited something. We stumbled back to his off-campus apartment, a cramped walk-up in a brick building that smelled like curry from the neighbors, laughing about nothing, the winter air sharp against our flushed cheeks. Inside, with the radiator clanking like an old freight train, he poured us whiskey from a bottle his dad had sent from Texas. We sat on his threadbare couch, knees touching, and the conversation dipped into dangerous waters. "Ever wonder what it'd be like?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, "if we weren't just friends?" Victor's eyes darkened, and he set his glass down with deliberate care. "All the damn time." Then he leaned in, his lips meeting mine in a kiss that tasted like smoke and salvation. Tentative at first, then fierce, like we'd both been starving for it. It wasn't fireworks. It was a dam breaking, years of sidelong glances and unspoken what-ifs crashing over us. We pulled apart breathless, foreheads pressed together, and he murmured, "This changes everything, doesn't it?" I nodded, terrified and alive in a way I'd never been. That night, we talked until dawn. Not about sex, but about futures, about building something real amid the chaos of college life. Victor confessed he'd been fighting his own demons. A bad breakup back west that left him questioning if love was worth the wreckage. But you, Theo, you make me want to try again. Spring thawed the campus, and so did we. Stolen moments in the stacks, his hand in my back pocket during movie nights with the group. Whispered, "I love yous," in the dark of my dorm. It felt like the American dream repackaged for us outcasts. Two guys against the world, carving out space in a place that still whispered faggot under its breath. Victor pushed me harder than ever. Study dates that turned into strategy sessions for coming out to my parents over summer break. "You've got this," he'd say, tracing patterns on my palm. "And I've got you." I believed him. Hell, I started believing in myself. But cracks spiderwebbed in, subtle at first. Victor grew distant after a call from his ex. Some surfer dude named Riley who'd resurfaced with apologies and plane tickets. "It's nothing," he'd insist. But his phone buzzed constantly, and he'd step out for air. I buried the jealousy, told myself it was the stress of finals. Then came the betrayal, sharp as a switchblade to the gut. It was mid-May, the quad blooming with lilacs that masked the rot underneath. I'd been riding high, straight A's projected, a scholarship interview lined up, when I overheard it in the student union. A cluster of guys from Victor's frat, laughing over lukewarm pizza. "Dude, Victor's been playing both sides. Told me last week he's ditching that freshman emo kid for Riley. Said it was just a pity fuck to boost his ego after the breakup." My blood turned to ice. Pity fuck? After everything. The nights he'd held me through panic attacks, the way he'd inked Theo into his notebook margins like a talisman. I confronted him that evening in his apartment, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Rain lashed the windows again, a cruel echo of that first night. "Is it true?" I demanded, shoving my phone at him with screenshots from a mutual friends group chat. Victor's own words, slurred in a voice note. "Theo's sweet, but come on. Riley's the real deal." This was just encouragement therapy. His face crumpled, but not in denial, in exhaustion. "It's not like that," he started. But I cut him off, the hurt exploding like shrapnel. "You lied to me, made me think this was real, that I wasn't just some project to fix your savior complex." Tears burned my eyes, hot and furious. Victor reached for me, but I jerked back, the room spinning. "I needed you, Victor, and you turned it into a goddamn game." He sank onto the couch, head in hands, confessing in broken fragments. Riley's persistence had worn him down, stirred up old flames he couldn't extinguish. "I panicked, Theo. I didn't know how to end it without breaking you more. But I do love you. Fuck. I love you so much it scares me." The climax hit like a freight train. I stormed out into the storm, pounding pavement until my lungs ached, the city lights smearing into accusatory streaks. Part of me wanted to vanish, drop out, run back to Ohio and bury myself in denial. But deeper, a spark Victor had ignited refused to die. I ended up on that stone bridge in Riverside Park, the one overlooking the churning creek, rain soaking me to the bone. That's when he found me, drenched, desperate, his hoodie zipped over a chest heaving with sobs. "Go," I snarled, but he didn't. Instead, he dropped to his knees in the mud, gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "I'm the coward here, Theo, not you. I betrayed us because I couldn't face my own mess. Afraid that loving you meant admitting I wasn't the hero I pretended to be." His voice cracked, raw and American in its unflinching honesty, like a confessional from a Springsteen ballad. "You deserved better. Hell, you still do. But if you'll let me, I'll spend every day earning it back." Thunder rolled, and in that suspended moment, I saw him. Not the encourager, not the betrayer, but the flawed man who taught me resilience wasn't about perfection, but persistence. I didn't forgive him that night. We stood there, soaked and shattered, the creek roaring below like the world's judgment. But as the rain eased, I extended a hand, pulling him up, not into an embrace, but into possibility. Summer came and we parted ways. Me to Ohio for a tense family reconciliation where I came out over lukewarm pot roast, their stunned silence blooming into cautious hugs. Him to California, chasing closure with Riley only to return empty-handed. wiser. We texted sparingly at first, updates on job hunts, shared playlists of indie folk that ached with what-ifs. By fall, I was back at school, stronger, with a part-time gig at the campus LGBTQ center and a short story published in the Lit Mag about a boy who learned to climb crystal stairs. Victor showed up unannounced one crisp October afternoon, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, that compass tattoo peeking from his sleeve. "Transferred," he said simply, eyes hopeful but braced for rejection. "If you'll have me, as equals this time, no heroes." We rebuilt slowly, over walks along the Hudson where leaves crunched like fragile promises. The betrayal scarred us, a reminder that love in America, messy, immigrant-hearted, defiant, wasn't a fairy tale but a hard-won negotiation. We fought, we laughed, we held each other through the small deaths of doubt. And in the end, the unexpected lesson wasn't about trust unbroken, but trust remade. That encouragement, true and fierce, starts not with saving someone else, but with saving yourself first.